Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Gaming News. This show may or may not be 5 minutes. Today in the news, more and more countries around the world are moving to crack down on loot boxes and microtransactions. First, in Spain, the country is set to become the first nation to have a law regulating the use of loot boxes in games, aiming to avoid thoughtless, compulsive, or even pathological consumer behavior. Consumer Minister Alberto Garzon said the government will, in a few weeks, regulate gaming features that offer prizes with an economic value in a real or virtual market and can be resold or exchanged, including non-fungible tokens, NFTs, or cryptocurrencies. While the regulations themselves have not been specified yet, the goal is to make it so gamers can just play games without all the detrimental effects of being targeted by companies trying to get you to buy their loot boxes. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, 6 political parties have united behind a proposed ban of loot boxes in that country. The motion claims that in video games, children are manipulated into making microtransactions and that loot boxes are also a form of gambling. The worry, of course, is that it has the addictive properties of feeling like you're scoring big when you win, but also it means you spend a lot of money when you lose. Potentially money you don't have. With bipartisan support, it appears likely to succeed, and the Netherlands would then join Belgium in a ban. So it looks like more and more countries, especially across Europe, are seeing loot boxes and microtransactions for what they really are, and are starting to crack down, and I'm sure more will. But the interesting thing, the thing that I'm curious about, is what are video game companies going to do? Because it makes them a lot of money, and it is built into their business model now for most of them, so are we going to see some pushback? I'm almost positive here in the States, there are plenty of lobbyists for video game companies in government right now being like, slow your roll, we don't need to worry about this. And I don't know that that's a big thing overseas, so I'm curious about what's going to happen here, but as more and more nations start to say, no, we don't want loot boxes, what's going to happen? What are gaming companies going to do? I guess we will see. While we're talking about loot boxes, and before we jump into this next story, I just want to remind you that all those things in that loot box, all the things you buy online, all the microtransaction things, at the end of the day, it's really just nothing. Why do I bring this up? Well, what do we in games really own anymore? Ubisoft is here to remind you, not much. Ubisoft has announced that on September 1st, they will decommission features from select older games. Things like Assassin's Creed 2 and 3 multiplayer, Far Cry 3 online features and DLC, Prince of Persia's DLC access and co-op multiplayer, and a lot more. They say closing the online services for some older games allows us to focus our resources on delivering great experiences for players who are playing newer or more popular titles. And while from a business standpoint it makes sense, as less and less people play older games, you'd be foolish to throw money at those titles, but that's where the always online, digital online only content, modern gaming dilemma comes into full focus. Be it Ubisoft, Steam, the Nintendo Store, whatever. At some point, they can, and clearly will, just take stuff away from you, and you can't really do anything about it. Is this why when you think of retro gaming on YouTube, it's kind of stuck in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s, and after that, it just kind of becomes harder to invest in retro because sometimes you simply can't? Is this just the world we live in now? Get your kicks from the game while you can before they take it away from you? Because I guess you're just long-term renting things? I don't know. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Clearly, this is a subject I'm sure a lot of you have thoughts on, and that's what the comments are for. Speaking of thoughts, that's weird. I have a lot of thoughts, there we go, about patreon.com/Jesse Cox, where you can hang out with JS, Andrew Schubauer, and Flobe. Anyway, that's it for the show. Thank you so much. I'll see you all tomorrow for another episode of 5 Minute Gaming News.